Brothers and sisters, we have come to the end of this series. In conclusion of it, I want to leave you with a parting message. In just 100 years from now, every single listener to this series will be underground. Our bodies will have become part of the soul. And during that time, our fate with respect to paradise or hell would have been made known to us. In just 100 years from now, it will apply to you, it will apply to me. Meanwhile, the houses that we had left behind would have become homes for other people. Our clothes will be worn by others. Our cars will be driven by others. And as for you and me, we will be, for the most part, never thought about. I mean, for example, how often do you think about your great-granddad? How often does your great-grandmother cross your mind? Our presence here on earth today, this presence that we make so much noise about, so much fuss about, we shed so many tears for, this presence of ours here on earth was preceded by so many generations before us and shall be followed by so many generations who will come after us. And every generation that passes through this world barely finds the time it needs to just even take a glance at this world before finding itself needing to bid it farewell and handing over the baton, having not even fulfilled even a fraction of their ambitions. Our lives in reality are far shorter than what we had imagined. In just 100 years from now, every one of us who is watching this video and understanding these words will realize from within the grave just how worthless this world actually was. And how trivial those dreams that were centered on it were. Every one of us will be wishing that he had dedicated his life to the great matters of life, the matters of Islam, and that he had devoted all of his time and his effort to the collection of as many good deeds, particularly those good deeds that continue to benefit a person after his death. It is for this reason that it should be on the top of our list of priorities to leave behind us a legacy that will outlive our short lives that are rapidly ending every second of the day. We should yearn to leave behind us a project that will feed our scrolls with good deeds when our limbs are no more. And that will cause the believers to speak well of us after we die, of many generations to come. We should crave this. Just as Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ craved this. He wanted people to speak well of him, the believers to speak well of him after he dies. Look at the dua. Look at his speech to his community, followed by a dua. قَالَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْبُدُونَ. He said, have you not considered what you are worshipping? أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمُ الْأَقْدَمُونَ. You and your forefathers. فَإِنَّهُمْ عَدُوٌّ لِي إِلَّا رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. They are all enemies to me, Ibrahim said, except Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Who is He? Ibrahim says, الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينَ. He is the one who created me and guides me. وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينَ. And He is the one who feeds me and gives me drink. وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينَ. And when I fall ill, He is the one who cures me. وَالَّذِي يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينَ. And He is the one who will cause me to die and then will resurrect me. وَالَّذِي أَطْمَعُ أَن يَغْفِرَ لِي خَطِيئَتِي يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. And He is the one whom I hope will forgive my sin on the day of recompense. Then Ibrahim makes the dua, رَبِّي هَبْ لِي حُكْمًا وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ. My Lord, give me judgment and join me with the righteous people. And then he said, وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And grant me, O Allah, a reputation of honor among the later generations of people. And in another ayah, Allah Almighty said about Ibrahim, وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. We left for him a favorable mention among the later generations. So what has happened as a result of this dua of Ibrahim? That, Ya Rabbi, give me a good reputation in the later generations of people. That dua that was backed up with a work ethic and sacrifice. Ibrahim has, because of it, now become a celebrated figure across the nations of the world. The Jews believe in Prophet Musa and have rejected Prophet Isa, Jesus. Whilst the Christians believe in Prophet Isa, Jesus, but they rejected Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, all three of these religions are unanimously agreed that Ibrahim is an ally of Allah who should be praised and celebrated. Ya Allah. The lives of these four Imams have displayed the importance of living a life in preparation for the hereafter. And that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees ikhlas, sincerity within a person's heart, Allah will take it upon Himself to sponsor your efforts, to sponsor your project. Even if you are ill-resourced, even if you're outvoted, even if you feel weak, Allah will nurture your deeds till you meet Him on the Day of Judgment, and your deeds will be like mountains. Doubting this is to doubt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So live for the great matters. Trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with the enthusiasm of a believer who hopes for paradise and is excited for it, start planning for your religion. Start planning for your hereafter. Then just watch how Allah will guide each and every one of your footsteps, and how Allah will open up doors of clarity, guidance and inspiration which you could never have imagined. Allah will facilitate, but take that step towards Him and start planning. I want to close with one final example, a contemporary one. If I was to show you a picture of this man, I think most of us may not recognize him. I choose this one because it's a recent example, and we like recent examples. Who is this man? Maybe a lot of us will not know, but if I show you a picture of this booklet now, most Muslims across the world will recognize it. Fortress of the Muslim, Hisnul Muslim. A booklet of dua, which he compiled. Prayers that are to be said in various times of the day, different circumstances in a person's life. The author of this very well-known booklet was the very same man in the image whom you just saw. He is Sheikh Sa'id ibn Wahb al-Qahtani, who passed away in October 2018. The idea of the booklet is not novel. The size is not enormous. The graphics are non-existent. But what seems to be the situation, that it was a moment of sincerity which Allah saw within the heart of this man, and so this booklet was sent across the continents of the world, being translated into so many different languages and printed millions of times, covering the East and the West. And now Muslims from all across the world are remembering Allah, praising Him, glorifying Him, under the supervision of this simple, modest booklet. Can you just imagine the amount of good deeds which we hope that this man has accumulated because of this simple book and continues to do so? Now, are you saying to me that you're incapable of producing something along these simple lines? Of course you can. And of course you must. And one last message before we bid you farewell. It is so important to remember that the efforts that you exert today may only come into fruition many years after your death. Don't despair if you don't see your efforts taking off in the life of this world. Regardless of what the nature of your project may be, it is different from person to person and the circumstances vary. Your duty is just to sow the seed with dedication, to plan, to consult, to start. Then Allah decides how and when to give life to matters and place barakah in them. And an example of this is Ali ibn Tahir al-Sulami, a key example in this department. He was a jurist upon the Shâfi'ī school of thought, teaching in the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. Now, Imam Ali authored a book which he called Kitabul Jihad, meaning the book of jihad, which details the rulings of jihad and explains the different Quranic verses that address it, the different duties of different categories of people, and he frequently cites the works of Imam al-Ghazali, who was also, of course, Shâfi'ī. You can say that this was pretty much the very first scholarly response to the Crusaders. Now, the initial readings of this book, they were in around the year 1105, 6 years after Jerusalem had just been conquered by the Crusaders. Now, subhanAllah, a person would assume that these readings of this book, the book of jihad, would be popular, right? Because of the urgency of the matter and Al-Aqsa has been taken away. But subhanAllah, the readings of these books were very poorly attended and the book was largely forsaken thereafter. It was forgotten. A year after this, the author, Ali ibn Tahir, he passes away. He didn't live to see much. Seems to be the end of his works, right? Wrong. In the year 1187, his book, subhanAllah, managed to find its way to the limelight once again. And there was another public reading of it, 81 years after his death, which provided the Muslims with a much needed push forward. And so the Muslim armies were consolidated. They came together in a really spectacular way of gathering different diversities and ethnicities and languages. And Ali ibn Tahir's book would be publicly read again in the lead and the build-up to the famous Battle of Hittin, the battle where Jerusalem would be recaptured by the Muslims under the leadership of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. What does that tell you? It tells you that people's talents are different and they vary, and their interests and their circumstances vary. But what is key is that a person gathers his thoughts, his ambitions, her talents, her time, his resources, and then devises a clearly defined plan as per how they shall be invested for the greatest matters of life. And that is Allah and the home of the hereafter. And when you do that, to realize that the fruits of your work may show up during your life or many years after your death.